Welcome to LegacyCast, your source for hearing from top influencers, industry experts, and successful business owners who are telling their unique story about life, values, goals, business strategies, and the various causes they are so passionate about. Future generations will come to be impacted by what is happening today, whether positive or negative, and our mission is to focus on what is going to affect change for the better. Hosted each weekday by James Snow, a former U.S. Army combat medic, now founder and principal advisor of James Advisors Group, a full-service financial planning firm in North Texas. This is LegacyCast. Greetings, LegacyCast listeners. This is your host, James Snow, and we're coming to you again from our wonderful LegacyCast bunker, and have with us today a very, very good friend of mine, Natan Bradbury. And he's got a very interesting story to tell you today. Obviously with our program, we do speak about things involving legacies. And his world really is something that I find very interesting because it's something that helps people to protect, that legacy. And it's in a way that you don't really think about. So, without further ado, welcome to the program this time.
James, thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. Thanks for bringing me onto your program here.
Oh, it's a pleasure, brother. And for our listeners, he's a fellow Army buddy, Army veteran. So we always like to bring our veteran guys on here. So
absolutely.
When I was mentioning on the introduction, there is when we speak about legacy, and a lot of people think of it just from one standpoint or another standpoint. But really, a legacy is kind of, as we always say here, it's your story told your way. It's how are you still telling your story of what are you passionate about? What is it that you love in life? What kind of things are you wanting to be remembered for? When your time here is done, and what are you doing to impact other people? Which then is going to resonate. Kind of like the analogy of the pebble in the pond. Is it creates those ripples that go all the way across, and that really is what a legacy is. Big picture is what are we doing today that's going to impact many generations from now. But when you, Natan, are thinking about a legacy, what comes to mind for you?
So honestly, James, you really hit the nail on the head with what I'm working on and building with my cybersecurity firm. The goal and the intent is to establish a lasting legacy. So what I've done with my partners is look at, okay, how can we have the biggest impact? What can we do to really make a difference in the world, right? I mean, that's what a legacy is all about. Sure. Is you want to make a difference. And it all comes down to when you leave, right? When you die, how are you going to be remembered, and what are you going to be remembered for? So my biggest driving force is, again, this probably stems back from my time in the Army as a soldier, as a protector, guardian, sort of a role, right? What can I do? How can I help protect people? So taking that thought process and that mindset and then combining it with my skill set that I'd already developed within IT and within cybersecurity, it became a natural process to look at, okay, how can I help impact and have that connection on people with cybersecurity. So a lot of that comes through what we do, which is educating people about the different threats that are out there, where those types of threats are coming from, whether it's the criminal sector, whether it's state actors. There's some very, very big players that have gotten into the scene now as state actors, sure. Including the Republican Guards. North Korea, that was a bit of a surprise once they got into the game. We all know about the KGB and the effect that they've had, right? And the criminal sector coming out of primarily Eastern Europe, the amount of money that they're making off of innocent victims, if you will, right?
Sure.
It's hundreds of billions, right? It's a ridiculous amount, and it's projected to grow to the trillions of dollars within the next 5 to 10 years. So that being said, what my goal is to have that impact by educating business owners, educating companies, corporations, and like I mentioned before we got started with the podcast, cities and towns, local government is a big risk. School districts are very underserved. The risk for them is tremendous.
Sure.
So what we do is we educate them as to what the risks are, and then help them develop a plan and a program to protect themselves and insulate themselves against those different threats.
Yeah, and you're mentioning the different threats. Some of my history is sort of in a very parallel world to what yours is, prior to getting into the finance sector, and so I from that history was aware of all of the different threats. There's more than 6 common threats, and people don't think about that. But you're mentioning the school districts, and child identity theft is one of the fastest growing areas, to where there's children 3, 4, 5 years old that are already in severe debt, not because of what they or their parents have done, but because of what these crooks have done. And so that is quite literally you're protecting people's legacy from the first day of their life in some cases.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct.
Now, when you're thinking about your personal legacy, Natan, is that something that you spend a lot of time really pondering and considering, as far as what you're doing that's going to impact future generations?
Absolutely. So, and then tying that into the personal legacy aspect. It's become such a driving force for me. It's something I'm very passionate about, and that's helping people protect. Honestly, what it comes down to is, as a business owner, you're dealing with people's identities, honestly. Names, addresses, social security numbers, depending on the industry, whether you're in the medical field, whether you're a school district, you have all of this sensitive information that by having it, you have an obligation to protect that. So for me, the real core personal aspect of this is educating people to take that seriously, right? They have this responsibility. You need to be serious about this. Personally, I've been impacted. My identity was stolen 2-3 years ago. Being a veteran, all my records are stored in the Office of Personnel Management, OPM, right? When OPM had their massive breach and didn't find out about it until years later, all my information was stolen. So I've been personally and directly impacted. Hits on credit, still trying to clean that up, get that restored. So there's a very, very big personal aspect to this, right? And again, getting back to from a personal perspective, and having that legacy impact, another big area that we're focusing on and working on is legislation. So we're actually started working with a state representative from the state of Texas to introduce legislation around cybersecurity for municipalities and school districts. That legislation is moving forward. It's going to be introduced in October, with the intent to have it passed into law coming next year.
Excellent.
And what the impact that will have is twofold. One, it will reinforce the idea of responsibility on the part of municipalities and school districts. And two, there's some grant funding options that have been discussed. So there's some resources that will be allocated for these school districts so that they can be more effective and proactive.
Sure. And that's really, I would think, a big caveat there, for the districts is, excuse me, that they're going to be concerned about the bottom line to implement right. Whatever the things are that their due diligence should be doing. There is a cost factor, and so this is going to help them a lot, to be proactive in it, and I would think jump on the bandwagon early, and get this thing done that they should be doing, already. It's just when it comes down
Correct.
to it, for a business, everything that you implement does take money. It takes money and time, one way or the other, and time is money too.
That's the name of the game. Exactly.
So now, with you kind of mentioned some of how you correlate your legacy into how your business is, but are there additional things that you, on a personal level, are incorporating into your legacy mindset from a business standpoint?
So on a very personal level, some of the other things I'm involved with are different veterans charities, right?
Okay.
Obviously, being a vet, that's something that's very personal for me.
Sure.
There's I would say one of the biggest, one of the most important things for me as a vet is helping fellow vets that are dealing with PTSD.
Right.
Right. The statistic that we have, I'm sure it's old, right, from the VA, 22 vets a day commit suicide, right? That's the general idea. With what I'm involved with, there's a couple different organizations. I'm going to go ahead and name them if that's all right.
Sure, absolutely.
So 22 Until None is a big organization. Big involvement anyways. They're not a very large organization, but right. So I'm involved with them. I'm also involved with Defenders of Freedom. And the goal there is just to help my brothers and sisters, right? One thing I've learned is that for veterans who are struggling with whether it's PTSD, whether it's transition, there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of, okay, what do I do now? A sense of hopelessness, right? So if you give someone hope, well, they're not going to kill themselves.
Right.
So that's been a very, very big factor for me. And how that ties into my business is, well, just taking time out of my day to be involved in those projects, those organizations.
Yeah, and likewise, that's something, not the specific organizations that you're mentioning, but also something that I'm very passionate about as well, is make sure that we can reduce that number to zero, because
absolutely
there's no rational reason for that to exist. And so, the only reason it exists is because not enough touches have happened, with the people that are struggling. And so, right. we've got to be there. We got to be there, had their six, and we got to take care of it, because, it's our job, and it's incumbent on us to take care of it. Not wait for somebody else to fix the problem. Let's fix it for ourselves.
So you touched on that. I want to show you real quick what's actually written on my shirt. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, my brother's keeper. Absolutely.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, and
absolutely.
For the listeners that don't know, that's also from Scripture. So we are our brother's keeper, and so that's something that we should be very serious about and very deliberate about. If you're looking at your business from a CEO standpoint, Natan, what would you say maybe a few things are that from a business head standpoint kind of keep you up at night? Are there a few things that you think about that might also be something that one of our listeners is struggling with?
What doesn't keep you up at night as a business owner, right?
Right.
There's a lot. I think for me is um, two things. One, with the educational aspect of what's a really driving force for me and for my company is um, informing companies of the risk and what threats are actually facing is one thing that's always difficult to overcome is, well, I run a small business. I'm really not at risk, right? Nobody's going to come after me. Nobody's going to do anything. It's not true. And coming up against that mentality is can be very frustrating.
Sure.
Oftentimes the impact isn't realized until it's actually felt, right? So as a business owner, it doesn't matter what you're doing, whether you're in construction, manufacturing, or if you're a healthcare professional, right? Oftentimes it's, well, I really don't need to do anything about that right now because it's not a problem right now. That's if you're being reactive and not being proactive, you're asking for trouble.
Sure.
You're going to get bit harder than if you invested a bit of time being proactive up front. So getting back to that, yes, that does that keep me up at night? Sometimes. Some of the other things are just keeping track of everything else that's going on, right? I mentioned to you earlier, we've got a number of projects we're working on. We've been engaged by the Department of the Treasury for some overseas projects, very, very large projects that we're working on getting nailed down. So keeping track of everything, the projects that are stateside and the public sector, the private sector, as well as overseas, that is definitely challenging as a small business owner. I will say that. There's no question about it.
I definitely think so. Yeah, I would think. So from what I'm hearing from you, Natan, it sounds like your belief would also be that it would be important for people to have, some sort of personal strategy and a business strategy, put into place for their business. Not limited to the cybersecurity thing, but all encompassing with their business that they should have.
Oh, absolutely. So,
given that, what do you think maybe some of the most common reasons are that businesses, especially the small business and the entrepreneur, what do you think that they're failing or giving up? Just what you've seen.
So very, very, honestly, that's a great question. So there's a couple of reasons, right? If they're giving up, it could be because their finances are stretched beyond capacity, right? So I would say that's probably going to be the number one reason. They didn't plan out before they started in their business venture. They didn't plan for the finances they would need. They didn't plan for the capital they would need, whether that's in the form of products, providing products to the market, services to the market, or even funding, right? Whether that's a loan, an investor.
Sure.
I would say poor planning, right? But honestly, most business owners, myself included, you go into business, it's like, I've got a great idea. I'm going to take the world by storm. And then a few months in, it's like, oh, wait a minute. Let me backtrack for a minute. And now I'm going to develop a plan. Well, that's really not the best way to do it, right? You should plan things out beforehand. So I would say that's probably the largest factor why small businesses fail. The second is it's sheer will and determination, right? So if you don't have the determination, and the willpower to see your idea through, then maybe it wasn't really that important to you in the first place.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
It has to be something that you're passionate about and that you're driven by. If not, it's that much easier to just give up.
That's true. That's true. And I'm a huge, I love statistics. So I could rattle on for days on end nonstop about just, statistics of, the different things, but you've hit several of them. Yeah. Just from what you were mentioning, the capital and so forth, because depending on what your business is, you're going to have different capital needs, and you have to look at that, from a strategic standpoint. And a lot of people, like you said, we start a business, we're gung-ho, we're ready to go. We want to take that hill and conquer the hill. And we're so excited and motivated, but at some point you forgot to get all of your equipment together, and you're not going to be able to succeed in battle if you don't have your equipment. And the most important part of that equipment is the strategy and the plan, and having that course of action. Because if you don't have your course of action and your standard operating procedures put together, the business plan, the financial plans, all that stuff laid out, then you're going to be one of those statistics that I was talking about, and the numbers are pretty high. It's
very, very high.
Well north of 40% of small businesses are failing just because they didn't do the financial part of it. So when you add all of the other pieces, that's why 90% of entrepreneurs end up failing, is because of not putting something together.
Yeah. I seem to remember a quote from our time in the Army. What was it? If you fail to plan, you're planning to fail.
Yep.
I believe is what it was. That's true. It's absolutely true.
Yeah, I use that one quite a bit with people, as because it is very true. If you don't have that plan, it's like going on vacation without a roadmap. And you plan on maybe going to Yellowstone and enjoying the scenery there, and you're starting out from Florida. But how are you going to get to Yellowstone if you don't know what roads to take and what detours are going to be there, and where your stopping points are? You're going to have to stop and get gas. Do you know where that's going to be? And you're not going to make it to that destination if you don't at least have some sort of roadmap that's going to get you there.
Absolutely. And, actually, I want to tie that back in a little bit to what we do at ViTech.
Sure.
And that's helping people, develop that roadmap, that plan, that understanding of, okay, here are some of the different pitfalls that you could be facing as a business owner. Like, say, for example, I encountered a school district recently that didn't have any malware protection, right? So they were infected. Every asset on the network, over 2,000 of them, were completely infected. Every possible type of malware you could think of. Well, it's because they didn't know the different pitfalls that they would be facing without somebody coming in to educate them and counsel them and guide them on that.
Sure.
And that's exactly what we do.
Yeah, and that's something I'm definitely going to keep in mind, because as I'm working with businesses and doing consultations there, I'm coming in from obviously the financial side of it to set them up for what they're going to do for their executives and what have you. But the piece that you're talking about is a further layer of protection. Because I'm protecting people's assets basically from themselves and from the market, but you're protecting their assets from the unforeseen things that that we really can't do anything about. So it's you have to have some sort of protection, and so that's definitely a needed piece for the business owners that are listening. Is take note, and we're going to have contact info for Natan later on. Excuse me. So now with small businesses and entrepreneurs, obviously there's going to be different roadblocks that they're going to run into, and then also resources that they want to look for. In your experience, what are some of the roadblocks that they should avoid, and what are some of the resources that would be beneficial for them to be looking for?
So in terms of roadblocks, I would say getting back to planning, right? Make sure that when even if you're an established business, and you've been in business for 5 to 10 years, take the time to reevaluate, right? Look at where you currently are, and see if, okay, well, what can I do to change my current situation? Do I want to grow? Do I just want to continue where I'm going? Do I want to turn around and sell my business? Take that time to develop a plan, right? So I would say as a roadblock is, again, it gets back to planning, proper planning. I'll preach this all the time, every day.
Yeah.
Make sure you have a plan, right? So the first roadblock would be failing the plan. In terms of available resources, as a veteran business owner, there are a lot of resources available to you. There's even non-veterans, right? But specifically the veteran community, since we're both vets and we move in those circles, I'll speak to that for a bit. There's resources available with your local chamber of commerce. There's resources available with the Small Business Administration. There's resources available with the Veterans Administration. There's a lot. There really, really is a lot out there that you can use and take advantage of. Again, whether you're starting out or whether you've been in business for some time, there's a lot you can do and leverage to help you succeed in business.
Yeah, and there are so many different resources, and just from what I've seen is a big part of what is a problem, especially for the veteran business owners, is and the veterans in general, is just the number of resources are so many that it's daunting and they don't know where to turn. And so if nothing else, get on Facebook, get in a veterans group, and that's where Natan and I actually met, was through a veterans group. But get in one of those groups and start asking questions, because there invariably is going to be someone in that group that has the answer for you. And as the saying goes, there is no stupid question. There's only stupid answers. So don't be afraid to ask the question. And because you'll be able to get some information there that's very valuable. It's going to save you a lot of time and save a lot of stress, because ultimately that really is the stress and anxiety is the biggest thing that a lot of us face as vets, is not knowing how to deal with the stress and anxiety. We can deal with a lot of things, but how to deal with that piece. That's sort of the monkey on our back, so to speak.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. The military trains us very well on how to kill. Trains us very well and how to perform our jobs very, very well. But they don't teach us how to deal with stress. There's no training course on dealing with stress, right? So, and I think that also ties back into what I mentioned earlier in terms of people that are transitioning out or dealing with PTSD. They don't know what to do, right? So it's very, very important to lean on your brothers and sisters in the veteran community, and to help you deal with that stress.
Yeah, I totally agree, Natan, because we're all there and we want to help each other. So like I said, lean on your brothers and sisters, because that's what we're there for. That's what we should be doing, and rely on that resource, because there's a whole bunch of us.
Absolutely.
Leave no man behind. That's the way it should be.
Yeah.
So here's kind of an interesting question I want to throw out there. And nowadays, in society, we've seen a lot more of this sort of starting to happen, with business owners, in the news media. Take that with a grain of salt, because you may not be able to trust what they say. But business owners that are injecting their personal values and belief systems into their business and building a business around that. How do you feel about that, or handle that, Natan?
That is a very, very interesting question. I think that as a business owner, that's going to be inevitable, because especially if it's something that you're passionate about, you're going to put your own ideas and belief systems into practice into your business. right? For example, there's another veteran that we know quite well, great guy. His three core values are honesty, integrity, and transparency, right? And I think as a veteran, there's a lot of that just comes out of military service. And there's another guy that uses the military, the Army acronym, right? Leadership. I think as a business owner, it's going to be inevitable that you're going to pour your own personal values and your core values into your business. The pitfall you need to avoid as a business owner is as you grow, as you bring on partners, as you bring on employees, is ensuring that there's not a conflict, right? Right. Be very careful about it all gets back to the people you surround yourself with. Be very careful, be very mindful of the people you surround yourself with. Ensure that there's no conflict of your core values versus their core values. And keep it as objective as possible. Sure. And not make it completely subjective. Right. That would be my biggest advice, right? As a business owner, and because you're going to put yourself into the business, you're going to put in your values. But if you want it to be successful, if you want it to grow, you have to make sure it meshes with the people that you're working with. Sure. And I would take that even a step further, that the people that we're going to do business with even are going to be people that will align, with what our belief systems are. And absolutely, that's why within my practice, I make it no secret that I'm a person of faith, and my practice is built upon that. And so, when I'm working with people, they know that, my business is built around scripture and around my faith. And so those are the people that I'm going to attract. And that's fine. That's perfectly fine, because there's only so many hours in the day, and there's only so much time that I can help people. There's only so many people that I'll be able to help. So I would much rather it be people that align with, with where I am and with where my thoughts and beliefs are, because we're going to have a better business relationship because of that. Sure. Yeah, that's absolutely true. Yeah. So I'll just tell people, don't shy away from it. In fact, do the opposite. Make sure that there is no mistake what your beliefs are and what your values are. Put it up on a big board right behind your front desk, behind the receptionist desk. So when they walk through the doors of your business, they know exactly where you are, who you are, and what you stand for. Because at that point, there is no mistake. And if they don't agree with it, that's fine. They can find another place. They probably should anyhow, because that relationship at some point is going to fall apart, and then you've ended up just wasting time, and time is money. So that's I mean, honestly, you really hit the nail on the head with who you do business with. Yeah. It's important to I get it. As a business owner, you want to do business with as many people as possible. Sure. And keep that cash flow going, right? Well, okay, that's all well and good. Can you live with yourself at the end of the day? Right? Can you sleep at night with what you've done in business? I think that's absolutely important, and very, very critical. You want to work with people that align with your values. Sure. And if they don't, then you're right. They're not a good fit. Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. And it's perfectly okay to say, we're not a good fit, and shake hands, part as friends, and have a very adult, dialogue there. It's perfectly okay, because you actually are going to earn their respect, and they probably are still going to, inevitably they know other people, so they're going to have friends, family, coworkers, what have you, that they know align with what your beliefs are. And so, they're going to give that referral. So you may not do business with that first person, but you're still going to have that compounding effect of their network. And so you will end up, invariably working with, several of the people that they know, even if you're not working with the first one. And that's good too, because, that's multiplying the effect. Even by turning away one piece of business, you can bring in dozens more. Yeah, that's absolutely true. So,
Here's another fun question that I have here. What's something, now you're a bit younger than me, Natan, so this will be fun. What's something
don't let my looks fool you.
What's something that you wish you had done earlier in life that you did not do?
Oh, regret, right? So what do I regret? Oh man.
Yeah, it doesn't have to necessarily be regret, but maybe something you didn't pull the trigger on that you thought, man, I wish I had done that back then.
That's an interesting question. In terms of opportunities, missed opportunities, or accomplishments, not much. When I was younger and much more immature, made a lot of mistakes with in personal relationships, right? Very cavalier, uncaring. It's all about me. I don't care about anybody else. I think my one regret is not being as invested in the people I've known, worked with, served with. That would be my one regret, and I'm making up for it now. But and again, with age comes maturity, right?
Sure.
But personal relationships and investing more time into those, and being more caring, compassionate into those personal relationships. That would be my one regret.
Good deal. So now we'll kind of lean on the little bit, slightly more personal direction, with where we're headed here on the next few questions here. But
got it.
When you were transitioning out of the military, there obviously were going to be some different hurdles that you had to overcome, during your transition.
Sure.
And then also getting into business, there's hurdles in transitioning into the business space. What particular hurdles did you encounter, and then how'd you overcome that?
Okay, so when transitioning out, while I was injured, right? Mm-hmm. So I was actually, I got out on a medical retirement. Mm-hmm. So going through that process and during my transition out of the Army, the one thing I leaned very heavily on was not the VA. There's another organization, Disabled American Veterans, I think was the organization, the DAV. Uh-huh. They were extremely helpful.
Yep.
Helping me through the transition. They got me lined up with a doctor, got my medical exam done. Mm-hmm. They helped with my disability package, everything. So through the transition process, and again, I got out in 2004, so it's been a while, right? But they were extremely helpful with that process, and that was a big piece of my transition out of the military. Adjusting to civilian life afterwards was very, it was a very, very weird experience. That took some getting used to. I think for me, it was just kind of working through that process, getting used to the changes. There wasn't anything that was so severe and dramatic that had a negative impact per se, but again, when I got out, I was in Hawaii, so that's not such a bad place to get out of the military.
Yeah, that's rough.
But that being said, so from a military perspective, I give a lot of kudos to the DAV. They really helped quite a bit in that transition out. From a business perspective and really starting the business, again, I really encourage business owners, whether you're starting out, whether you've been in business for a while, put your plans into place.
Sure.
Lean on, find a mentor, right? So whether that's, again, with the SBA, whether that's a personal coach, personal mentor, somebody who's very experienced in business, been around for a while, can really give you some good, solid advice.
Yep.
To help you plan. That's something I would absolutely recommend from a business perspective.
Sure. I mean, having a mentor is something you can't even. I mean, it's not even quantitatable, the benefit that you're going to get from it, because you want to surround yourself with people that have what you want to have, that have achieved what you want to achieve, and have reached the places that you want to reach. Surround yourself with those people, and then be a mentee to those people, because they can give you knowledge, and chances are the people that have achieved that success, they want to pass that. They want to give that to somebody else. So all you have to do is ask. There's nothing for not asking. So you just ask if you can learn from them, because chances are they'll say yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you're coming upon your answers during that transition, was that kind of obvious to you, or did you sort of stumble through and figure it out like I did?
I think I would say I pretty much stumbled through it. It's funny that, again, getting back to the military and the military mentality, and again, this was years ago. I don't know what the situation's like right now.
Yeah.
I imagine it's probably not much different. You don't really get a whole lot of guidance coming out. You get your checklist. You get, okay, well, you need to be here at this time to get rid of your TA-50. You got to be here at this time to out-process from dental, medical, XYZ, right? So you get that, and that's about it in terms of the guidance you get from the military. They don't, I know there's some different programs available, but they don't make it mandatory. At least they didn't used to. Things like what it's like to look for a job, or even for us, what it's like to start a business, what's involved, what's that process look like, what are the resources available, right? I would love to see something like that in place that the military does, or even a private organization working directly with military service members that are transitioning out to help guide them through that process.
Sure. Yeah, I would too. And in fact, behind the scenes, that's something that I am also passionate with, and plugged into different organizations that are trying to do that. Is they do have the TAPS program, but that's just not enough. It's not enough just to go through that transition assistance program, but there's a lot more that's necessary, and digging a lot deeper, and digging into a lot of the things that they're going to be carrying out. How do you take, for example, your military benefits into the civilian world? And what are you going to do when you get out? Is that going to be the best thing for you, or do you want to go ahead and just, cancel that and buy something new when you get out? It's, a lot of those questions that really are going to be very individualized, and, you do need to determine for yourself and for your family. And, they don't do that right now. So, again, something I'm very passionate about, trying to see that happens. So.
That'd be fantastic.
Knock on wood. Well, someday we'll get that in place, and we actually have a better transition process.
Yeah.
When you were starting your businesses, how did you get started? Kind of walk me through, what that looked like.
With an idea, a concept. It was okay. Here's what I could do. Here's the skills that I have. Let's go to market and see what happens. It was the shotgun approach the first time around. The second time around, and I mentioned this to you briefly, after reorganizing, rebranding, reforming with partners, took the time to actually do some planning, to really approach it differently, to look at the different markets, who's being served, by what we can provide, right? By the cybersecurity expertise, guidance, and advice that we can give. Whether that's in the healthcare sector, whether that's the public sector, like again, school districts, municipalities, or private sector, oil and gas, whatever, right? Whatever the case may be. The planning that's gone into that, and the market research, the second time around was much more well developed than the shotgun approach the first time. So, but you learn by experience, right? I mean, you go through the different stages and phases as a business owner. A lot of us, I think, and you were asking why small businesses fail. Well, it's because a lot of us, we have this idea, this concept, and we're like, man, this is great. This is wonderful. We're going to change the world. Yeah. And then it doesn't have quite the effect that you were looking for.
Sure.
Right. So it goes back to staying power in that case, right? So if it doesn't have that impact, do you have the power to either stop and press the reset button, sit down, take a look at the market with what you're doing, see if there's a need for your services or your products.
Sure.
In most cases there is, right? But it just depends. And looking at that and developing, again, getting back to planning, developing that plan, and then going forward from there.
Yeah, and some cases you were mentioning the need. Sometimes there is a need, but maybe not where you're looking. There may be a geographical need, so you're trying to sell the right product at the right time, but at the wrong place. So that's part of that research and development period that you need to go through, and just make sure that what you're trying to do is in the right location, or at the right time. It might be that it's a really good idea, but the market's not quite ready for you. So can you shelf it, or hold on, or can you just trudge through and have the stamina and the funds even to be able to make it through the dry season until it's able to come to market. So
right.
There's a lot of things that come into play.
That's exactly. Yep. That's exactly right. And if you're in that dry season, if you're trudging through, again, I think it's important to take a step back, right? Look at what you're currently doing. Okay, well, why isn't this working? Is it my approach? Is it the wrong geographic location? Right. Is it the wrong demographic? Right? Look at those. Take that time to step back. Get the 50-foot view, as it were, right? And look at what you're doing and reevaluate. So again, getting back to my personal experience, where I personally started with my business initially was in the healthcare space, right? I saw all the breaches in the medical field, all the ransomware attacks. I mean, there was a case, I think it was 2016, where an entire healthcare system was shut down, right, due to a ransomware attack. Right. And that happened a multitude of times. Like, okay, well, this is a perfect market. I have the expertise. I've got the knowledge. I can go to this sector and really help them. Well, you can. It takes time before you can get to that level where you're having that impact. And so gradually over the next couple of years, again, as a single business owner, I started making that impact. First with a small practice here, small practice there, and then a mid-sized hospital there, and so forth. But looking at, okay, well, there's more sectors that can be served. There's a very underserved market when it comes to school districts and municipalities. Let's look at the market there. Let's focus on that and see what kind of impact we can have there. And so recently, within the last, I would say 6 months, forming the new company, the new corporation, we've had a tremendous impact in that sector. So we're really pushing hard on that.
Excellent, excellent. So what would you say, Natan, would be your greatest strength?
My greatest strength? From a very personal place, I would say it's genuinely caring, right? So a lot of people will say, "Oh yeah, well, yeah, we really care about you, and we're going to take care of you," and it's all fluff, it's all BS, right? Where I come from is a place of look, I've been personally impacted. I've had my identity stolen. It sucks. It's a nightmare. So if I can help you, help your customers, or help the people you're serving, protect that and stop that from happening, then I'm going to come from a place of I really care about this. Again, I think that's why I'm so passionate about it, because it's had a personal effect on me, right? Sure. So I would say that it's the fact that I really do care about this, and I'm not here to blow smoke up, your six, right? That's not what I'm about. So.
Good deal. The flip side of that is, what would you say your greatest weakness is then?
Greatest weakness. It's not that I don't have weak points. I definitely do. It's just deciding which one I would consider to be my Achilles heel, right? Oh boy. Greatest weakness. Trying to think. There's a couple different areas, right? Right. So one is making it too personal, caring too much, getting very personally invested. Say for example, I'm talking to a hospital, or I'm talking to like the CTO of a hospital, right? Like chief technology officer, the chief information officer. Or if I'm talking to, we'll say a small practice dentist, right, for example, because I'm so passionate about protecting that business and protecting those assets, I can take it very personally if they decide and say, "Oh, no thanks," right? So I would consider that a weakness. Yeah. The other being the tendency to want to help everyone, right? I can help this person, and I can help that person, and I can help this company, and I can help that organization, and stretching myself too thin, right? That I would consider that to also be an area of weakness. So being mindful of those things, and one, not taking it personally if somebody says no, because I know a lot of people do, myself included sometimes. And two, having the support structure and systems in place to be able to be involved in multiple projects at the same time. I think that's how you, at least how I counterbalance those weak points.
Yeah, good answer. Good answer, my friend. So people brainstorming, get ideas in different scenarios, different environments. Some people go outside and get their ideas. Some people special favorite room in the house or favorite chair, what have you. What's the place do you go to do your brainstorming and get your ideas?
I don't know if I have a specific place. Sometimes I'll be driving, thought will pop into my head. Sometimes it'll be late at night, and I'll get an idea that just hits me. In terms of trying to think things through and coming up with something more well-developed, I try not to do my brainstorming alone. I like to have other people, my team, my partners, to bounce ideas off of, right? So maybe I have a great idea, maybe it's actually it's a crap idea, right? So having that feedback and somebody to bounce ideas off of, I think is invaluable. It's absolutely invaluable.
Absolutely.
I think as business owners, we all get those flashes of insight, right? We've got this great idea that just comes to us. It just pops into our head at different moments and just going about our daily routine. But having a specific place to brainstorm, personally, I like to do it over whiskey and cigars, but that's just that's how I like to do it. Everybody's got their own thing they like to do, but having that environment, it's a relaxed environment, and then having my team members to talk with and bounce those ideas off with. Again, for me has been really, really fantastic. And so I would recommend to our listeners that whether you have a team, whether you don't have a team, if you've got somebody that you can rely on and bounce ideas off of, I think that's absolutely invaluable as a business owner to have that resource. And that's where your real effective brainstorming comes into play.
Right. Yeah, there's lots of mastermind groups that you can look for in your area that, if nothing else, find a good mastermind group. That way you can bounce ideas off of those other professionals and, get that insight, because, that way at least you have their perspective and their experience to help, weed out what might have been just a passing thought that probably you should have left passing on along, or is it one you want to grab a hold of and implement? So it's good to have those mastermind things. And
sure,
a little shameless plug is, we vets are starting up a mastermind thing here through one of our Facebook groups. So
I heard rumors of that. I'll have to touch base with you on that later.
Yeah, that'll be fun. Try to get a whole bunch of us together and sure. no obligations and no expectations, just pure mastermind, between peers.
That's cool.
That's the way it should be.
Yep, I agree.
So if you're to describe maybe your piece of your partnership that you have at a very high level for someone, because partnership arrangements are unique and they're different than the normal business relationships. How would you describe that role that you have within that partnership?
Sure. So there's actually a couple of different roles, the different hats, if you will, that I wear within that partnership. For me, it's the cybersecurity piece. It's staying abreast of the latest threats, knowing what the best software is to use, what's the best solution. So that way I can, after I've done like a risk assessment, I can make recommendations to my clients, to our clients, I should say, right? I can recommend a specific software that I know is going to be an effective solution for what they need. So I would say it's research, right? Security research would be one of the hats I wear. The other piece is education. Educating clients on the risks they face from the criminal sector. And the other piece is compliance, right? So there's so many different types of compliance that are out there in the US, whether that's, with healthcare, that's HIPAA, with financial, you're talking FINRA, GLBA, there's also SOX, there's PCI, right? So there's so many different pieces of that. And so the other hat I wear is being very well versed in compliance. Little shameless plug, I'm actually a published author when it comes to HIPAA compliance. So I've got some books out there that I've done the research on, I've written. So I'm very well versed in that world. And I take that as a responsibility. I have a responsibility to my clients to be that resource, to be well versed, to be knowledgeable, because they're looking at me. They're looking to me for guidance. So my role really within our company is researcher and educator.
Excellent. So for our wrap up question here, for this episode, tell me something about you, Natan, that other people probably, or most people, don't know.
Something that most people don't know. I would say, okay, here's one, and I kind of joked on this earlier. My age, right? So I look quite a bit younger than I am. So oftentimes, blessed with good genetics, I suppose. I don't know what you want to call it, but it is what it is. I'm actually, I'm nearly 40 years old, turning 39 this year. Most of the time when people see me, they assume I'm in my mid to late 20s. So when I tell them I've been working in the field for over 20 years, the reaction is, what, did you start when you were like 8 years old? No, of course not. I just look a lot younger than I am. So I would say, seeing me, most people don't realize my background, the knowledge base and skill set that I'm operating from. So, but it's not a bad thing, right? If people are assuming you're coming from a certain level, then you can turn around and surprise them and say, well, actually, I'm coming from a completely different level, completely different perspective.
Sure. Yeah, and that definitely is both being blessed and genetics, by the way. I can speak from experience because I, on the other hand, do not look 20 years younger than myself. And I pretty much look like 10 miles of bad road, as my grandmother would have said.
No, you're fine.
Well, bud, I guess to wrap up, we obviously want to give you a chance to put out, how people can get a hold of you, because with what you offer, there's huge value. And so both, whether it's, business or personal level that they need to get information from you, how would they reach out to you and get a hold of yourself and or your business to be able to, learn more from you, be able to bring you in and get them squared away and get them on track?
Absolutely. And we are, again, that's a big part of my personal legacy is being that resource and just helping people protect and defend themselves. So some of the best ways to reach myself or my partners, if it's, I was going to say, I'm always going to give up my cell number, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go that far. So I'll give you there's an email address. You can email us at info@vitechpros.com, and that's spelled VITECHPROS. That's a great way to get a hold of us. If you want to reach me personally, I'll give you my business email address, and that's Natan, Natn, at vitechpros.com. Again, that's VITECHPROS.com.
Cool, Natan. It's been great having you on the program today. And for the listeners, definitely reach out to those guys over there at ViTech Pros and Natan in particular, because information and education is the key to success. And the more you know, the more you're equipped. And when you fall down, it's basically because you didn't know what you didn't know. And so that's the best thing you can do is educate and equip yourself, because ignorance is not an excuse, and it's something we can do something about. So
absolutely,
you got some good resources there.
Absolutely.
And my friend, thank you for coming on the program. And
it's been a pleasure, really, James. I really appreciate it. I've had a great time.
Thank you, brother. And like I always say, I'll see you around the bend.
All right, sounds good.
Ciao.
All right, bye.
You've been listening to Legacy Cast. Thank you for joining us today, and be sure to come back next time as we speak with more top influencers, industry experts, and business owners from around the world.